Hi, I'm Glen Sample. My co-author and I wrote The Men on the Sixth Floor many years ago, and it's been updated a few times. But for a long time, I've wanted to present an audiobook, and then we got the idea for doing a video/audio book. So this is the very first installment, the very first chapter, and I hope you enjoy it. Please be sure to comment, give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll try to answer all of your questions that I can reach in the comments. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show.
The Men on the Sixth Floor. Chapter 1. A Murder in Johnson County. Suddenly, on October 2nd, 1968, Lawrence Loy Factor, 43, a soft-spoken Chickasaw Indian, became the subject of statewide newspaper headlines. Deborah, his 15-year-old stepdaughter, had led law enforcement officers to the body of her 31-year-old mother, Juanita, buried in a shallow grave, 3/4 of a mile from the family home in Fillmore, Oklahoma. She had been strangled. The belt that had been the murder weapon was found tightly wrapped around her neck. She told the sheriff's deputies that it was Loy who had murdered her mother. Loy disappeared from sight into the surrounding woods with his 4-year-old son Donnie, and for 12 days eluded an army of searchers who, with the help of bloodhounds, helicopters, and loudspeakers, pleaded with him to give up. The Indian, who was not only a diabetic but also an amputee with a wooden leg, made fools of the searchers. His skill as a woodsman and hunter served him well, as he had become the object of the largest manhunt in southern Oklahoma history. But on October 14th, Johnson County Sheriff Herman Ford and Wayne Worthen, an investigator with the district attorney's office, found Factor and his young son. He was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Not able to meet the $15,000 bail, Factor was confined to the county jail at Tishomingo until his trial, a wild media event in mid-May of 1969. But an unsure jury was split in its decision 6-6, resulting in a mistrial. A second jury found Factor guilty of first-degree manslaughter and sentenced him to 44 years. He was sent to the state prison in McAlester, Oklahoma, to begin serving his time. Sometime in 1971, a bout with hepatitis sent Loy to the hospital ward inside McAlester. The only patient in the isolation area was Mark Collom, a young man of 21 who was likewise being treated for hepatitis. Collom was serving a short sentence for a drug-related conviction. The young man found the Indian to be pleasant, a likable person. Mark had never actually known a murderer before, but found Loy didn't seem to fit the part. To the contrary, the man was almost simple-minded, childlike. The soft-spoken man was absorbed in an appeal to his manslaughter conviction, basically reading and asking for Mark's help and opinions on various aspects of his case. In the conversations, the Indian consistently denied murdering his wife, explaining to his young friend his theory that it was his stepdaughter, Deborah, and her boyfriend who had committed the crime. He shared with Mark his trial transcripts, which revealed Deborah's testimony to be the most damaging, while Loy often appeared to be confused and disjointed in his testimony. In the final analysis, the jury believed the perjured testimony of a 15-year-old girl and interpreted Loy's mental slowness as guilt. It became clear in Mark's mind that his new friend was an innocent man. What was unclear, however, was the motive for murder. It had been common knowledge that Mrs. Factor and her daughter did not get along, but why would young Deborah strangle her? Loy confided to Mark that he had hidden away in an old antique corn planter a considerable sum of money that he had never told anyone of except Juanita. The family lived on the secreted money for several years, but one day, Deborah observed Juanita retrieving some of the money from its hiding place. Juanita reported this to Loy, who immediately found another hiding place for the money, but it was too late. According to Factor, Deborah told her boyfriend Sam Davis about the cash, and the two of them began planning on stealing the money and running off together. The young, troublesome pair was a constant source of grief to the Factors. Loy speculated that the two of them tried to force Juanita to disclose the location of the money, strangling her in the process. Juanita tried to warn her husband before her death that Deborah and Sam were up to something sinister. Loy often expressed regret that he had ignored his wife's expressions of fear and vulnerability. He also cursed the day he came into possession of that money. The two men spent many weeks together in the hospital. No one else was there to disturb their boredom as they talked, read trial transcripts, and discussed Loy's legal strategies. As the days and weeks passed, Mark's respect for Loy grew. Eventually, Mark inquired about the money. Where had it come from? Why hadn't it been used as a defense? Why was there never a reference to this money in any of the trial transcripts? The Indian was not quick to answer those questions. Mark didn't question Loy's innocence. How could a diabetic amputee with a wooden leg strangle his wife, drag or carry her body 3/4 of a mile through the woods, and then dig a grave and bury her? Loy's explanation of the hidden money, the stepdaughter, the boyfriend made sense. But what did not add up was why this detail was not used in his defense. It became obvious that the problem was the hidden money and its source, something that the Indian avoided discussing. One day, shortly before Loy was moved out of isolation, he confessed to Mark why he was unable to talk about the money or use the money in any kind of defense. He had withheld information even from his attorneys about the money. He assured Mark that absolutely no one except Juanita had ever known about the money or its source. With Juanita dead, his young prison companion was about to become the only other person who knew. Mark sat quietly and listened to Loy as he revealed the source of the money, a crime to which he had been an accomplice in 1963, a misdeed he would have avoided had it not been for a spontaneous trip he and his wife had taken to Bonham, Texas.